some of the things that they're getting into are some of the planning, the what if scenarios that Infor's supply chain doesn't have, risk modeling, the predictive planning. But I think one of the things that we need to understand is I think this is being done so companies that are on Infor don't go outside of Infor to go do standalone planning with vendors like this.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Well, here we go, Sam. I love that intro. It's so lively, and we have to be lively, everyone, right? We're on episode 19, Analysts Gone Wild. Robert Kramer with more insights and strategy. We got a great crew today, and I can't believe we've been doing this for so long, Sam. I mean, it's 19 episodes in, and we got one of the best crews here today that we're going to go over some good stories. Why don't we first introduce ourselves? Hayun, I hope I said your name right. I mean, never usually do sometimes, but correct me if I'm wrong. But why don't you start us off?
No worries. I'm Hyun Park. I'm here, founder and chief analyst here at Amalgam Insights, firm I've run for the past 8 years, and looking forward to this set of announcements.
Great, Michael.
Sure. Michael Fawcett. I'm the chief analyst, founder, CEO of Arian Research. I started that about 3.5 years ago. We spend a lot of time on agentic AI, and CX and CRM.
Those sound like pretty important subjects, don't you guys think?
We have. It's not boring anyway.
We have somebody new to the show today. He's in Milano, Italy. I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. Massimo, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Robert. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Massimo. As Robert was saying, I'm calling you from Milan, Italy, where I live. I do research in the area of automation, orchestration, integration, technology. I'm an independent consultant, an independent IT advisor. However, before opening my little business, I was 25 years with Gartner, so I have a little bit of experience in this business. And at Gartner, I was covering more or less the same topics.
Well, you'll have to tell us, what would you say is an independent, and what would Gartner say? So
we can do the IDC view too, because I spent 10 years there, so that's good. We get Gartner, we get IDC.
Yeah, going to be different versions today, I guess.
Yep. Sam, why don't you kick us final us out with all the players here?
Happy to. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ, roughly 20 years in the industry. Our coverage area is enterprise software. And the reason why we have that intro, Robert, as you know, I mean, the official name of this show is Analysts Gone Grumpy, I guess. And we want to make sure that they are awake and not as grumpy. And that's why we keep the intro very alive.
Yeah, it's fun. It's exciting. Well, we got a lot of cool stories. I've actually been away traveling, so I haven't been on the show probably for about a month, but I'm back today, excited about it. I think we got a lot going on with ERP and AI and some SaaS stuff and cloud and some, olive oil and Italy to talk about and some wine and it all comes together. So what's our first story, Sam? We have Velixo, and they secure some funding. And this is really interesting because, I've been in the ERP space for a long time, and I'm not really too familiar with them, but I know that they, as I'm looking at some details for them, I'd like to talk about how it benefits the vendor and how it affects the customer. And I think from a vendor perspective, it shows that they have a little bit more presence in the market with this funding from Elephant. And from the business standpoint, from the customer impact, it gives them more, I guess, productivity from the tools that they have. So, from a reporting, budgeting, forecasting. But Sam, why don't we start with you? Because you're pretty heavy in the ERP as well. What do you think? Do you know these guys? How big of a player are they? And does this really affect the market of ERP?
Yeah, so I definitely do know them very well. So happy to provide some more context here. In fact, we have a update today from Acumatica, and I know that I think from our team perspective, we have discussed that these stories are slightly older, but we always try to bring the latest context if something is happening in the market. So one of the updates that we have from this morning is Acumatica has exchanged sort of hands from the private equity perspective. So they were with EQT, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with EQT or not. They're one of the biggest, right? So from EQT, now they are with Vista Equity. So now Vista Equity has a very different strategy. The way they structure their portfolio, the kind of strategy they are going to have for their portfolio companies. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting what is going to happen in the Acumatica ecosystem. And the reason why.
How did they cross paths with Acumatica? Can you explain that?
Velixo and Acumatica, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was going to say. So Velixo, the way they started, they were part of Acumatica ecosystem. So basically what it does is that the app, it's really the Excel sort of interface for ERP systems, primarily Acumatica. They were literally the ISV in the Acumatica ecosystem now. I think they are claiming that they have Acumatica, and then they have MYOB Acumatica, which is nothing but Australian version of Acumatica.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have CJED XRP Flex. I don't know what that is, and then Sage Intact, right? So it's fairly limited right now for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I brought that context is because Acumatica had a very different strategy for their ISVs. They were very liberal. In general, the way Vista is structured, they are not as liberal in my personal experience, because they have had companies such as Aptean in their portfolio, which was very guarded the way their strategy was designed. They were focused on service revenue as well, along with the software revenue. So there are going to be some changes. So here, when you look at Velixo, what they are trying to do is it's more of a CPM, FP&A tool, and there are like million vendors in the FP&A space. And these guys are really dedicated and very Excel friendly, meaning the only interface they had is very Excel driven, which is obviously very friendly for finance executives to do FP&A, and that's why they loved it. It is a very successful tool, for the most part, at least in the Acumatica ecosystem. I don't know how well they are doing in the other ecosystem. So I'll pause there, stop there.
How much do they secure? Why is it so significant? I mean, why is this a significant story? I'm still, it's such a competitive landscape in ERP, and Acumatica is a significant player, but why is this so important? Because it's more from a, I guess, reporting perspective. I mean, is it that big of a deal?
It is a big deal. And the reason why it is a big deal is because if you look at the ISV ecosystems, generally 90% of the apps that we have in these ecosystems, they are lucky to have like 4 installations, to be completely honest. So generally, their presence is very small.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular case, when an ISV gets funding from a decent VC or private equity, in this case, I don't know how Elephant is going to be aligned now with Vista Equity, and that's where I would be a little concerned. What's going to happen to these guys, whether they are going to open up the floodgate. But technically, I mean, they are sort of sharing the revenue with their partners, right? So there might be some, but overall, if any ISV gets funding from private equity or even VC, I mean, that's a big deal that they are doing really good, and they can see that this is probably going to grow, and that's why they are investing.
Gotcha.
I have a follow-up question, Sam, if you don't mind. Looking at, I don't know anything about this particular market, right? But Acumatica, Sage, those are ERP for mid-size organization, even small organization.
Small mid-size, yep.
Small as mid-size. So has this to do with the investment that Elephant is making in them? So are they specifically focusing this money into serving that particular market, in your opinion, or is it to scale up to the large enterprises maybe?
So my understanding of this deal is going to be that I don't think they will go to the larger enterprises, because there are other FP&A and CPM tool that are purely Excel based. The value prop that Velixo has, this is not the only tool that somebody has designed that is going to be Excel based. And then my in my personal experience, I think they are going to run into challenges with the other ERP ecosystems because they are not as open. Yes, my take on this would be that either they are going to design more capabilities around the product, and we don't have those details in terms of what they are going to do. But seems like obviously one of the things that they are talking about here is AI. And based on AI interface, and I don't know how Excel-based solutions are going to be relevant in the post-AI world. We are probably already in the post-AI world now.
Yeah. Well, Sam, that was my reaction when I read this slide. It was this is interesting, and it feels like I went back 10 years because I'm not sure that companies, as we move into this new world of agentic analytics or conversational analytics, or whatever you want to call it. And I mean, I suppose there is a play that says, and I don't know these guys well at all, but inside of Excel, I guess you can use Microsoft's Copilot. So maybe there is some AI there that I'm not giving credit to, but the truth is, and this next story we're going to go to, I know will make the point in another way too. But I was just a little surprised that we're still kind of talking about cool ways to use Excel. I don't know.
Although one of the things I did like about it is that in the FP&A space, there have been players such as Vina and Data Rails that have been Excel-based interfaces for planning and budgeting. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that Velixo is using Excel as the UX for ERP. However, I think of the FP&A role as different from the general ERP user. And I'm not sure that it is quite as compelling to make all of ERP accessible directly through Excel, the same way that a planning and budgeting application would use Excel. So it seems to be a specific set of use cases already here for companies that want to live in Excel and have their employees live in Excel. It's an interesting proposition. I honestly don't know what the market is for something like that, but I think it's that approach at least is a little different.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know if you have either used or seen demo of these two applications. So you mentioned Vina, and you are absolutely right that they are fairly Excel based. In the FP&A space, Excel based is a huge value prop. But if you look at the interfaces the way they were designed, Vina is more of the governance sort of platform from the Excel perspective. But this is like the whole experience is very embedded in Excel. And to your example, Michael, the Copilot is great, but the kind of functionality that you require to run the FP&A workloads, it's not easy. I mean, even though ChatGPT can do a lot and generative AI can do a lot, but not for the cube-centric functionality. It's very heavy, from the database operations perspective. It's not easy to do. And for the most part, this interface is very light. It's not the real FP&A to be completely honest, but it does provide very embedded experience, meaning the way your Excel formulas are going to be, that's how Velixo looks when you are going to use this. So that's how good it is for the finance professional. But upside potential, Massimo, to your point, I don't know how much that is, because again, when you get into the real FP&A workloads, they are very different.
Well, on the other hand, we admittedly, the Excel metaphor is one of the most popular, especially amongst the finance people. So they do know how to deal with Excel very well. So providing an Excel-like type of user experience probably makes a lot of sense from that perspective.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good start to the day of our podcast. Why don't we jump into the next one, which I think is pretty AI heavy here. And I think you said, Michael, you have a lot of experience with FloQast. Is it Flo? How do you pronounce it?
FloQast, yeah.
FloQast.
Yeah, FloQast, yeah.
So it's an accounting platform, right? And they've introduced some AI agents, and that's not new to the world, right? But to automate complex, reoccurring, workflows, which is a big deal. But so I like to look at things like I mentioned in the first one. How does it impact the vendor, and what does this do for the customer? And so the vendor has more automation, obviously, and to help their customers be more efficient and have AI capabilities in the product. But this does help the customer because it allows them to be more strategic and more efficient. I've always had a problem with saying that everybody is created equal here, because most of the clients, are they able to take advantage of these agents? Is their data up to snuff to take what they're saying here to the level that they're proposing? And is it a trusted environment from an accounting perspective? So, Michael, what do you think?
No, I mean, I think this is a good, and that's the reason I sort of pointed to that from the other one. I think this is a good example of what you are starting to see, right? That we're starting to see the capability to automate more and more tasks, and in finance, journal entries, reconciliations, some of those kinds of things, and even the idea of financial insights that goes back to the other discussion. Right now, you have the ability to query the data. Your point, Robert, is good about the data, of course, because if you don't have the data, none of this works. So that is a foundational, issue.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, financials in most companies, they do have access to that data, right? You're not. It's not as siloed and scattered as some of the other worlds that we look at, like customer data, for example. So I don't know. I thought this was pretty interesting, and I use a few rudimentary agent tools like that already in my financials, just because it certainly makes my life easier if I don't have to go reconcile, journal entries. Absolutely. And that sort of thing. So
yeah, they have a lot.
I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think especially FloQast, they are a custom-made application. They are a financial close company that is taking on the likes of Blackline, built by accountants. Their CEO is a CPA. Their COO is a CPA. They have lived this extremely deeply. They have traditionally been a workflow automation solution for close. So they have been dealing with this challenge for a long time. And I think it speaks both to subject matter expertise coming into the agentic world, as well as the workflow automation side coming into the agentic world, which is less of a unique story. But I think that combination speaks to the right type of foundation that you should be looking for when you're thinking about agentic solutions. Everybody and their mother and their grandmother right now is talking about their agentic strategy, but there's not necessarily a foundation behind it a lot of times.
Yeah, right. It's interesting they call out Coupa too, because that is, new applications over the last, 10 years or so that have been heavy in that end of it, like Coupa, that there is a lot of manual work working across those into your regular financial system. So I think that, was probably going to be a very popular thing from a customer perspective.
Yeah, from my point of view, I did a little bit of research on the usage of AI in business teams, right? Not necessarily agentic, but AI in general. And customer support is the number one, according to my research. So a lot of people are using AI to essentially support the operations of customers.
Is that Gartner or is it you?
No, mine. It's mine. It's mine. My research now. Okay. I cannot quote Gartner research anymore. The second one is IT automation, of course. The third one is revenue operations, and the fourth one is finance and accounting. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you why, but that's the result of this research I did.
That sounds exactly what I would expect too, right? I mean, the customer service piece of Service Cloud, all the kind of work around that. That's a really obvious value proposition for companies because it's painful. It takes a lot of resources, and if you can automate some of that and do it in a way using agentic so that it is a much more customer friendly kind of a system and a hybrid system that that escalates when it needs to, but can handle a lot more. That's huge value. So it's interesting, and now we're getting down into financials. That is a trust area, obviously, and so it'll progress a little slower probably than customer service, but at the same time, I think there's huge opportunity there.
Yeah, and by the way, the usage of AI in finance is the fastest growing all of these use cases, right? Much faster than anyone else, any other else. And I think that maybe what happened is that initially, maybe last year or the year before, organization they tested AI in the context of relatively low risk type of processes like internal IT support or maybe a little bit of customer support. And now they're beginning to trust AI as to the point of using it in much more business critical use cases such as finance and accounting. You cannot mess with finance and accounting and HR, for example. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do we have any comments? I don't think we do have some, Sam. I don't know if you want to
we
touch
do.
base.
So I don't know, Robert. I don't know if you can see on the screen. I brought this. I think we want to
Perfect.
address this.
Thank you. Go for it.
So number one, I mean, this comment, and then I'm going to have a question for you guys as well on FloQast. So number one, I'm going to read this comment, and if you guys have any sort of comment on this one, first you can provide your analysis on that, and then I'll have some questions for you guys. So Ken, hello Ken, and by the way, for the audience, if you are there listening, make sure you guys comment, because this is what we like to discuss live. This is what makes it interesting. So we would love to see some more comments and stories from your side. So Ken is saying it may be a bit nitpicky. He's always nitpicky. But are they auditing the AI agent itself or the work done on the books? And I'm going to provide some context there. And those are going to be around my questions as well. And he's saying, I think it makes sense because the focus is on managing the rules and the data that is being checked. But I think I would find a different way of stating this so that it's less ambiguous. So I would say this audit, Ken, is the real financial audit. I don't know but they are saying auditable AI capabilities. So I don't know if I want to say that again. So here okay. I don't know, Michael, you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, I think his point is correct. It is a little bit, as you read through this, they could clear up the language quite a bit if they would say, because you got both issues, right? You want transparency into what the agent does, but you really want to be able to verify the end result is what you expect. So that's the auditable part. So I think, but they could be clearer, I think, and that would certainly make it a little easier to understand.
Yeah, so I guess, I'm probably going to ask my question as well, and maybe you guys are going to have some more insights here. So when I look at FloQast, my understanding of this was, primarily in this FP&A and CPM space, but I think, Hian, you mentioned that they are similar to Black Lion, which would be more into treasury management, which is slightly different, I would say, than what my understanding of FloQast was, or maybe I'm mixing this with another company, because there is another company with Flow. They have Flow there. I don't know if I remember the name. They are very present in Apicore ecosystem. They have a cooler logo, I guess. So I don't know if I'm mixing, but my understanding when I look at the close management, I would still put them into the FP&A CPM space. Close management would mean a lot of different things. But for the most part, these days, 90% of the FP&A applications are going to have some sort of close management. Planful does that, a lot of others. So I don't know, Hian, do you have more context here overall from their focus area perspective?
Just that FloQast is really focused on close workflows, consolidation, close journal entries, getting into reconciliation across the board. And the agentic capabilities they're talking about here are around journal entry automation and transforming unstructured data into more structured information that is easily readable. I do agree that they short shrifted the governance of the agent itself, getting into how clear the actual integration is and the actual transformation might be. They bring out ISO 42001 and say this is what this is why we have a valid capability. But it could have been a little bit deeper. I think part of it is that they take for granted that they speak to accountants all the time and didn't necessarily need to provide technical credibility in this press release. And that can be a challenge when you're talking to a specific role all the time, that you can take this for granted based on one set of your stakeholders, but aren't necessarily speaking the technical language that we have come to take for granted when we think about transformation and integration and agentic work.
Well said. Well, anything else before we jump into the next one? I think we're moving pretty good today.
Well, I only have a general comment, right? This is, I think, and there is another announcement which is similar. I think this is an example on how vendors are trying to diversify and possibly reach new audiences by the use of AI and AI agents. So I think we're going to see more and more and more and more of these things coming up from the big vendors, of course, but also from mid-size vendors as well. And the second consideration is that probably, and I would be interested in knowing the opinion of my distinguished colleague here, probably at the end of the day, embedded AI, as I call it, so AI capabilities embedded into packaged application solutions, software as a service, etc., is going to be the primary way for organizations to consume AI, especially when it comes to mid-sized organizations.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's moving more towards even AI becoming a lot of the user interface for a lot of functions too, right? So if the more I can do conversationally, the less I want to be in some form typing in data. So
yes,
great.
Yeah, I would think from a practical perspective, the combination of data quality and data source selection, as well as model selection, that's a lot of work. To give to especially line of business users, but also finance and other users that are not super technical. These have been data analyst and data architect and data scientist work for the past decade. And there's no reason that your average software admin wants to suddenly get into the deeply into that space.
All right, let's go talk a little bit about supply chain. Pretty fun subject here with Infor partnering with Kinaxis. What's interesting, Sam, I know you have a lot to say about this as well, is that Infor already has a supply chain management system. And we know all today that there's a lot of volatility in the world and disruptions. And supply chain management is a big component of this. But they're partnering with this company for some of their advanced tools, really specifically for discrete manufacturers. And some of the things that they're getting into are some of the planning, the what if scenarios that Infor's supply chain doesn't have, some of the risk modeling, the predictive planning. But this is not, I think one of the things that we need to understand is I think this is being done so companies that are on Infor don't go outside of Infor to go do standalone planning with vendors like this. So why don't we open it up and see what you guys think? I see this as an extremely positive move.
Yeah, so I'll provide some context here, Robert, since you asked. So obviously, I mean, Infor was a very closed, ecosystem in general. They were not very friendly, even though they like to pretend that they are also kind of open company and they are open to other vendors. But for the most part, the way their business model is designed, it was always very guarded. They wanted to own pretty much every single, tool in the enterprise architecture. And that's how 90% of the ERP companies are selling at this point of time, even though they call ERP, but for the most part, it is the whole enterprise architecture. And this is a very interesting announcement here, when you look at Kinaxis, because in my mind, this would be very overlapping piece of functionality. Okay, when you look at Infor Nexus and Kinaxis, Nexus had very small subset network. Kinaxis had acquired a company called MPO, I believe, and that's how they got the network capability. But overall, when you look at the supply chain space, it's all over the place. And the reason for that is because, everybody is trying to acquire as many carriers, network, and data as possible to enable the AI. It's the data grab play when I look at it. But in this case, I would see a lot more conflict. And I don't know how this is going to go if Infor is going to spin off Infor Nexus. I don't know how successful that is. For the most part, Infor Nexus does really well in slightly more retail-centric spaces. Kinaxis was much deeper into manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, and that's what they are talking about here. It's much deeper in that space. So I don't know. Maybe it is complementary, but
it is complementary in a lot of places, but it is overlapping. But they're really lacking what I was mentioning, the planning component and the complexity that discrete manufacturers have. And there's some of the risk modeling that they don't have. So there's a bunch of features that Infor says that they're getting to that point to have, but they don't have, and they're afraid of losing these customers. So
Yeah.
of course there's overlap. And I thought the same way when I looked at it, that there's too much overlap. Why would they even do this? But it makes a little bit of sense as the market conditions are wanting companies to be able to adapt. And if they're not able to adapt, then they need the software to help them. But I'll pause and see what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, I was confused by this announcement a little bit at first as well, because I like Sam, think of Infor Nexus immediately when I think of Infor supply chain management. But looking at these verticals like automotive, aerospace, defense, industrial, these are definitely interesting vertical niches that obviously require a lot more detail on the supply chain side. I mean, frankly, when I think of automotive, aerospace, defense, I mean, Elon Musk comes to mind as, recent political issues aside, has been seen as one of the groundbreaking entrepreneurs of the past decade, specifically in these spaces that have been stuck in a status quo status for many years. And it could be that Infor is seeing pressure to get into these more detailed manufacturing areas to further expand the market.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. Michael, what do you think?
I was going to say, I think, Infor over time has been heavy into industry clouds already, right? That was a push they started years ago. And so this just feeds into that, right? It gives them capabilities in some of those industries where they didn't really have good planning, apparently. And from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense to me that you're going to be much more, narrow vertically focused across each of those different solutions to meet more of the demands of that vertical.
Do you guys think that industry specific is a big deal? I mean, I do. I just want to see what you all think.
I do. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, there are probably some exceptions in certain industries where it's really not that, different, but for a lot of industries, closing as much of that gap between the horizontal to the vertical is really important, and something that in the past they would have spent a lot of money customizing or getting, additional solutions around or whatever. At least it starts to meet considerably more of the specific needs of that industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Massimo, what do you think?
Well, I'm not at all an expert on these kind of solutions, but normally organizations, they partner together when one can complement the other from a functional standpoint, or the two companies together can sell more. They can address verticals or use cases which they cannot address by themselves. And maybe there is also there is even a competitive consideration here. Maybe the combination of the two companies is more competitive against, I don't know, the Oracle of the world or SAP or maybe Microsoft of the world. I do not know, but those partnerships are always suspect, because there was my mentor when I joined Gartner many years ago, who used to sell the only partnerships that work are acquisitions, right? So,
right. Right.
Those partnerships are always suspects, because putting together a press release is easy, but then operating in the market, reconciling the different sales motions and, incentives, et cetera, is very, very hard. So we'll see.
We will see. What else do we have to talk about this? Because supply chain is such an interesting topic, Sam. I mean, we all have... some of these companies, we've talked about how they can leverage supply chain management tools because production costs are so kind of out of control with the global economy and all the things that are going on, that's where you can actually shave costs. So how much of a big deal is this to help with something like that?
So, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't know how much systems are going to help. Regardless of how fluid systems are going to be, they require some sort of stability in the market before anybody can make any sort of changes. So the things that are happening in the market, for that, I don't know how much systems are going to help. They might help with the visibility in knowing what you have. But as such, there's no sort of correlation between the market instability and the system benefits, I guess, if I can put this way. Well, if anything, then nobody's going to install just because, it just uncertain market, and they would not like to commit more investments.
You could, I don't know if I agree with you, because you could have a tighter inventory control, better vendor selections, better pricing, better ability to handle disruptions and volatility. I mean, that's what the softwares are supposed to do. If you're doing that manually or through a system that doesn't have these capabilities, that adds significant cost.
Yeah,
Just
so
my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't know how you define inventory control, to be completely honest, because when you are going to have 25% upcharge, or sometimes 145% upcharge, sometimes I don't even know how much I want to put in, I guess. When you have that case, I don't know what you can do from the inventory perspective, to be completely honest.
The inventory control starts way back here. It starts with, having your inventory control based on Michael's AI, and AI controls what inventory you're going to stock based upon predictive modeling of what your customers are going to buy, prospects buy, cross-selling, things of that nature, aligning vendors, etc. So if that's set up in a way that's well, I think you should be saving money. If you're doing it manually, I think you have a major problem. But
it does help, I guess, in finding scenarios, who to call, I guess, when you have these sudden changes in the market. So it does help. I'm not saying that the systems don't help. But in general, I mean, chaos is a chaos.
You're eliminating chaos.
Yeah, obviously tariffs have been top of mind, and when I think of those sudden changes that are happening when we're trying to figure out what's happening week to week, something like this solution, it looks like it will provide visibility, but not necessarily action. This has always been kind of this dichotomy challenge that we face in the data world. Do you have visibility, or can you actually act and do something on this? And I would think that this is going to be great for scenario planning and seeing the inventory, but not necessarily for being able to adjust your sourcing and procurement and your contractual status and perhaps your back-end manufacturing systems to actually do the production. So this is going to help with perhaps orchestrating what you're going to do next, but in and of itself, it might not be enough to act at the speed that we are being asked to think about in these interesting times.
Good points.
Yeah, very judiciously put, too.
I mean, you want as many tools as you can to help you out. You got to get away from the manual. I think this is a way to be more modernized. I think that's another discussion.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Sam, anything you want to close out before we go to the next one?
No, I think let's go to the next one, unless you guys have anything else. Okay.
So Pegasystems, they're automating some new things specifically for the government. I think that when we talk about using AI, we talk about how they're going to digitize their case management and have more AI driven decisions. I think the workflows can be more strategic. So I think we all feel that the government needs help, and this might help with some of their automating case studies. I'm not sure if it helps things like the EPA or anything else, but auditing, it should help talent and legacy tech. But I don't know. I'm not extremely involved with Pega too much, but I think that automation is a big thing for them. And if they can have more decisions made with AI, I think it helps with the speed to delivery that they're trying to provide. What do you guys think?
Well, Pega's been around. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Pega's been around forever, right? And it used to be a BPM. BPA, call it the word, business process management, business process automation vendor for a long time. I don't know, 25, 30 years probably. Over time, they repositioned themselves. As you know, BPM is a bad word, so they are positioning themselves right now as a low-code application platform. But in the reality, probably we can think about Pega as an application vendor. Actually, they layered on top of their BPA platform a lot of content, prepackaged solutions, prepackaged processes, especially in the CRM area, right? And I'm not sufficiently familiar with Pega to say whether they are a strong player or not in government, but traditionally government is one of the most voracious consumers of BPM technology, because they have all these processes which are rigidly defined, etc., etc. So that's probably the reason why they made this announcement. And I echo what I said, commenting the FloQast announcement. It is another example of a vendor which is trying to differentiate through agents, agentic technology, trying to build something special or something unique. The problem is that everybody is trying to build something unique in the same space, so it's not going to be very unique. And again, probably for government agencies, this is going to be one of the most common ways of leveraging AI technology, but basically acquiring this type of solutions from the Pegasystems of the world and their competitors.
Well, don't you think they have some pretty stiff competitors with Appian, ServiceNow?
Oh, okay. It's a very, very competitive business. Moreover, BPM is not a fast-growing market. It's a
especially
it grows, but yes.
Okay.
It's a relatively small market and is not growing that fast. So those vendors, they desperately need to differentiate, right?
Yeah.
By just selling the platform.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say Pega's moved a lot towards customers and customer, services and that sort of thing over the past several years. And if you think about that and you apply that to government, one of the biggest problems and one of the hottest topics has been citizen services. So I think that's actually one of the key points here. They're really going to try to enable the customer, or in this case, the citizen services that they need, and try to help them automate some of those processes, which actually should get, pretty good recognition. And I mean, Pega's a good player in that CRM customer kind of facing automation space already. So it makes sense to me. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of investment there around modernization and citizen services.
Well, wouldn't you think that Appian would be a big competitor here because Appian's government initiatives?
I think, I mean,
that area.
Yeah, they are, and there are a lot of other players in this space too. I mean, you're correct, but Pega does have a good reputation, and how penetrated they are in public sector, though, I'm not really sure, but this does seem like a well thought out idea anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just to reinforce some of the points there, guys. So Pega does have decent representation in the public sector space, so I can confirm that for you guys. To your point, Robert, when you look at Appian, and when I look at their stories, recent stories at least, I mean, they seem to be doing a lot more work in the data space, even though everybody likes to call themselves as more of the low-code, no-code, which is very well commoditized and over-commercialized in my mind, the whole term, okay? Massive, to your point related to the whole BPM play, right? So yes, BPM is sort of everything is BPM, but you also have, from the technical standpoint, when you compare, for example, ServiceNow is much cooler from the technical perspective. When you are going to use something like Pega, and I have personally used, so I know how bloated and clunky this could be. I mean, technically, ServiceNow could be as clunky, even though they are going to position themselves as super cool and sexy. But it's not easy to code and create inside these technologies. ServiceNow is going to be slightly easier. So it's not just the rebranding play here. When you compare your Appian, ServiceNow, these three, I think you guys were comparing and contrasting. ServiceNow is definitely much cooler, I would say, and they are doing far better. Obviously, and I don't know how much Pega has improved their technology. The underpinnings are still going to be extremely bloated and old and legacy. And I think the same thing happens with Creatio as well. They are much lighter, I would say, in terms of what they are able to do. Right? I mean, it's not as complex from the technical boilerplate standpoint. I would think that Pega is probably going to be the most bloated of all. In terms of the way it works, just because it's a legacy technology and they are not going to rewrite the complete platform. The final comment I'm going to make about this whole story, the whole citizen experience, in my mind, when I look at the use cases of generative AI, that's where I think you are going to have real play. And the reason for that is because 90% of these citizens, they really struggle to read and write and find information. They're not very tech savvy in general when you look at the average person. So for their user experience and workflow, in my mind, I think the conversational experience is going to be a real differentiator. So I can see a real value. I mean, even me, when I look at any of the government documentation, it comes across as very clunky. I don't understand it, even though I have decent education. So that's where I guess when I can talk to something, it's going to make my personal experience much easier.
Yeah, an additional comment. You are completely right, Sam. This BPM, BPA market is in transition. So we have the pre-cloud vendors like Pega and Appian, etc., which they move to the cloud in some way, right? But we have the cloud native vendors like Creatio, ServiceNow, and many, many others, which are lighter weighted by definition, and they're cloud-based, etc., etc. So, I see customers migrating away from the Pegas and the Appians of the world and moving toward this lighter weight type of platform, simply because they are more productive, they are possibly cheaper, and they're definitely easier to deal with. On the other hand, the very famous joke: the world was created in 6 days because there was no install base, right? So the Pegas and the Appians, they have a significant install base, so they can, let's say, cultivate their install base and upsell to them these kind of solutions to continue to grow.
Great. So, Sam, do we have anything else on this? Do we want to go to the next one, or what do we think?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. I think we did a good job on that.
So we got Planview. They announced new product capabilities. This is one I'm not terribly familiar with, but I understand that they provide software for for programs that can help with projects, for transformation, for other types of alignment within companies. Sam, I'm sure, are you more familiar with this? Do you want to kind of take the lead on it?
Yeah, I can take the lead on this one. So in my mind, I think they are more of the project management player, very similar to Atlassian. That's my understanding of their business model. They were very well present in the enterprise space. That's my understanding. And again, I mean, when we look at the terms such as strategic portfolio management, I don't even know what that means, to be completely honest.
That's what I was a little stumbled with.
And how much that matters. But I mean, we are seeing some consistency here, because we covered a story last week, and I don't remember the vendor name. I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if any of you were there in the last session. There was one vendor from the project management perspective. They were also pushing for strategic portfolio management. And in my mind, when I look at the project management space, which is heavily penetrated by the likes of Monday.com, Smartsheet, the lighter, collaboration centric ad hoc, project management tools. So I don't know how much of strategic project portfolio management tools are going to be of value, because we are looking at very democratic world, where everybody has their own sort of tools and instances, and then we will probably do some sort of data warehouse here to be able to get these insights. So I don't know who's asking for strategic portfolio management right now in this market, but
So
everybody seems to be yeah.
Sam, let me jump in for a sec, because I think you got to take a step back for this one, because what they're talking about are businesses that are based on projects, right? They're providing software to help businesses that manage a business that's all project based, like Dell Tech, NetSuite, these guys, Planview. So strategic portfolio management is extremely important for a business that's managing a series of projects, and that's how they generate their income. So they're trying to manage all of those, and the resourcing, the staffing, and all the other pieces around that. So that is actually quite an important process for that kind of business, right? A project-based business. So I think, this is interesting from that perspective. And I'll tell you, I've spent more time with Deltek going through what they're doing, but this is a similar kind of thing. There's so many places inside of that process that you can add AI that makes a huge difference. Like, even just a simple thing about which projects should you bid, because this will be more likely to be profitable versus that one.
Yeah.
Or how do you staff this project if you have a portfolio of projects? You have to move your talent around to meet the specifics of when and where and all that. So there are a lot of complexities in managing a project-based business.
Yeah.
And because of that, AI is a really good, strong play in this, because you can automate so many of those basic things. Like, I need an employee to do this project at this time with this skill set. How do I find that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'll add some more from my perspective, I guess. And Deltek is a great example because there are 3 different layers here. And I think you mentioned Deltek, NetSuite, and obviously these players, right? So I like to bucket them in number 1, the ERP-centric players, which are going to have, all of the data sets consolidated as part of the process, where you are looking at the financial view of the project, along with the operational or the execution view of the project. The second is going to be PSA category. And PSA category is very different. And then you have the pure play project management category. So this one is going to be project management. I don't know how much of ERP these guys are going to be. When you look at Deltek right now, Deltek, I guess, which is that Viewpoint as well as Vantage Point, I guess both of them are struggling at this point of time. They already have their sunset deadline. So I don't know what is
cost point and vantage point. Yeah. So the thing about this is that Planview is another player in this. They do offer a lot of the operating system for a project-based business, and PSA, kind of an older referral to kind of an older approach to this. If you start to think of it as project-based ERP, then they sit on top of some of the financials, of course, but they do have a lot of those capabilities. Deltek, much more complete solution. NetSuite, much more complete solution. But still, a lot of those tasks in the project end of it really could benefit from intelligent automation.
Great points.
Agreed. Anything else? I think we got time for one more, and then we can wrap. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, let's do that. Unless you guys have anything else to add on this. No, I think that was a good discussion. Okay, so Massimo had a lot to talk on this one. So Robert, I don't know if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, I'll kick it off real quick. So, Rimini Street announces a new partnership to work with Workday. And I think this is somewhat pretty important because they're used to working with other vendors, Oracle, SAP, etc. So they're now working with Workday, and this expands their ability, to tap into Workday's customer base, which I think is a big deal. But then organizations using Workday can benefit from the expertise of them. So, Massimo, what do you think? Is this a big deal? It sounds like it is, but
I think is
revenue, etc. for Rimini.
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, I think is Rimini. You may or may not know, but Rimini is a city in Italy. It's a very popular vacation, seaside vacation place.
What are they known for besides software support?
Nothing. This is what they do, right?
No,
in other
city.
words, they are the city. They are not in software support. They are in vacation,
like Italian wine or olive oil.
They are in olive support.
No, it's food. It's the beaches,
okay.
Very big, very nice beaches, and food. Really, food.
Okay.
Food is the thing there. I can entertain you on this.
We'll come back to that in a minute.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Rimini Street, as you know, is a third-party maintenance company, right? They made up a significant business by selling to SAP and Oracle customers maintenance services, right? For people who didn't want to pay the super expensive maintenance fees to those vendors, or for vendors who didn't want to migrate to the next release, right? So this is how they have been making money for a long, long time. But that business is going away, because in the cloud, you don't have these kind of problems, right? So I think that what they are now trying to do is to reposition themselves in terms of making money by basically selling to software as a service companies such as Workday a bunch of things: skills, application management type of capabilities, and so on. So basically, they are probably going to compete against the system integrators to some extent. Right. So because now for their traditional business, who is competition? Other third-party maintenance companies such as Spinnaker, I think is another one, or the Oracles and the SAP of the world. But with this proposition, I think their competition is going to be most likely the Accenture and EY and TCS, etc. of the world. So it's an interesting announcement from that perspective. It's a change in business model, which is needed because their traditional business is going to go away, and so repositioning themselves in this space is kind of interesting move from their perspective. Are they going to be successful? I have no idea, but
it sounds like
to me,
it's a great partner, Workday, especially.
Indeed, and the move is smart, because
Well, we got a couple of minutes to kind of go through this before we hit our conclusion. But Michael or Ian, what do you guys think?
I mean, these guys have been around for a while. You're right, in the whole maintenance world, I'm sure they've been sort of in trouble over a business model shift for a while. So I mean, I guess it does make sense from that perspective. When I read this, I had to read it a couple times because I was like, well, what are they doing in the cloud? But I get it, right? It's providing resouring, body
skills,
shop kind of approach, which does compete with the SI. So I don't, I don't know. It's a bit of a shift from where they were, but it does seem like a reasonable step, I guess, for where they need to go. So.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that this means Rimini Street has found somebody they can work with that isn't going to sue them. As Rimini Street has been famous for being in unfortunate lawsuits throughout the years, taking on the big giants. But I think what Rimini does, from a straightforward perspective, it's a valid business model. Obviously, it's a great way to cut costs if they are legally allowed to provide these services.
So I'm actually going to take slightly different position here on these guys, and it just blows my mind how big this business is. Just doing the support, to be completely honest, okay? And I don't believe that the SAP or Oracle business is going away. Obviously they had hit a little bit of cap in terms of their market share, and that's what they were trying to figure out. Okay, which other ecosystems can I go, to increase their market share? For the most part, AMS is a term that is very well prevalent in the enterprise space. It's called Application Management Service. There are very specific contracts in general. When you talk to any of the ERP vendors and their support, it sucks. It really does. And I have personally not interacted with Rimini support, so I cannot speak for how good that is, because when you are going to do at that scale, you are not going to get a kind of consulting support. Okay, the customer's expectation when they look at support, their expectation always is going to be that, oh, hey, can I get Robert here? Can I get Michael? Can I get Sam? Okay, but that's not how it goes, right? You are going to get a support consultant who's going to be trained on 1,000 scenario, which is actually going to be worse than AI, to be completely honest.
Okay, support's never going away, Sam. You're right. Why would it? I mean, all these companies are still owning their own destiny, right?
Yeah, so support is going through a very different shift at this point of time because AI is going to change the game. So I don't know how much these guys are going to upgrade. AI is going to be much better support provider than Rimini Street. I guarantee this. Okay, to some extent, consulting as well. So now, what is going to happen in this space? Yes, Workday is a very good, place to be because you have similar problems as, their core business model. So I don't see any sort of risk in their business model, but there are going to be a lot of changes. I guarantee this.
It looks like they're moving. It looks like they're moving more towards staff augmentation too, rather than straight up service delivery, which is an interesting shift for them. And I guess that is, it doesn't. A lot of companies wouldn't be interested in taking your software as a service offering and getting support from a third party, but staff aug is a whole different issue. And if you have the available resources and the model works, I don't know, it could be interesting.
Yeah. And from a strategic perspective, Workday, of course, Carl Eschenbach is very focused on growth over there. And this allows him to spend more.
All right. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour almost. Let's do just a quick wrap. Everybody, why don't we say, because we have such a special guest, what's your favorite Italian food and why? So, Keon, why don't you talk about what do you like and why?
Oh gosh, I'm a sucker for lasagna. I think it's a lovely dish, and it always takes several hours to make correctly.
Correctly is the key word there, right? Okay. What would you pair it with, white or red wine?
Red, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Michael, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I do like Italian wines. I tend to spend more time in Portugal and Spain with those wines, but the amazing Italian wines, Tuscany, really good. But I really like Sicilian wines. And you don't see that as often in the U.S., but when you can get them, really interesting and definitely, very well priced, very good value, and good wines. Italian food, yeah, I love all Italian food. I don't know, I kind of know how to pick one. Pasta, that's it.
Yeah. Well, let's save Massimo for maybe last, but I feel that chicken parmesan or traditional spaghetti and meatballs is like phenomenal if it's made right. Chicken parm is a spectacular dish. But I always like good red wine. Italian Chianti is fantastic.
Mhm.
So what would you pair those with, Massimo?
Well, I have a little secret for you. Spaghetti with meatballs is not an Italian dish. It's an American dish.
American.
We don't have
Meatballs are-
spaghetti with meatball here in Italy. There is only a small region in Italy where they do make spaghetti with meatballs, but in Italian restaurants, you never find the spaghetti with meatballs.
My answer would be chicken parm then. How's that?
No, that's okay. I
Okay.
mean, yeah,
What about you?
yeah, spaghetti with meatball, I think works very well with, for example, Montepulciano, which is a wine from Tuscany. Very well with, let's say, with the Central Italy type of wine. So Brunello de Montalcino, Chianti as well. So yeah.
What's your favorite food? And then Sam will finish it off. What's your favorite Italian? Give us some tips.
Yeah, so I mean, I get a lot of home cooked Italian food here because I live around, a lot of Italian families. So fruschetta is probably going to be, one of the things that I absolutely love. And then, I don't know if you want to wrap right now, Robert. I know we are close to time, and Massimo has to drop, I believe.
Yep, we'll wrap it up. But Massimo and Michael, Hyun, and Sam, thank you for joining. Everyone, we'll see you next week. We appreciate it, and hopefully we were able to communicate some great views of ours. And Analysts Gone Wild, we'll see you next week for number 20, Sam. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.